Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, all right. Sige, hindi na tayo magulat sa iban kay it's 4 na. Okay, so let's start off. Remember that amino acids is yung lecture natin ito is the last topic of our for our midterm exam. Medyo mahaba-haba itong topic na to, tsaka more on memorization talaga. So wala tayong magagawa diyan. But as ano tawag dito, I'll try na maintindihan natin na without actually memorizing, no, para mas easier for you. All right. So I hope you have your notes with you now. Okay. So let's start off. Although inopen ko din yung discussion ni Miss Jem. Nakita niyo ba yung lecture din ni Miss Jem sa sync? As a asynchronous? Did you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pero dito ako magkuha ng exam. Okay, so let's start off. Okay, so amino acids. What are amino acids? Remember that. Please be reminded. I-mute nyo muna when you go inside the room. Okay. So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, just like your lipids, di ba, yung fatty acids natin. So ito yung mga single molecules making up a larger molecule, tapos magiging bulky proteins eventually, which will be part of the building blocks of the body, right? So the chemical properties of the amino acids of proteins determine the biologic activity of the protein. Alright? So, may nagtukturao ka. Alright? So, remember that amino acid, syempre, building block siya ng protein. So, technically, it is also part of your growth, repair, and maintenance of all cells. So, lahat ng mga metabolism natin which involves your proteins are actually similar din sa amino acids kasi ito yung pinagmulan natin. So an amino acid contains at least one of both amino and carboxylic acid functional groups. So ito yung structure ng amino acid natin. Meron tayong carboxylic acid group and we have the amino group. This is the alpha carbon, the hydrogen, and the functional group. Remember that the functional group will determine if this amino acid will be this type of amino acid. So kumbaga siya yung unique for a certain amino acid. Siya yung magdidictate kung ano yung properties nito, whether this is non-polar, or whether this polar, etc. All right? Okay, so the basic structure of your amino acid is that, as I have mentioned, meron tayong N-terminal end amino group. Ito yung NH2, and the C-terminal end carboxyl group, which is the COOH. It is bonded to the alpha carbon with the amino group of one amino acid linking with the carboxyl group of another, forming a peptide bond. So ibig sabihin, gaya nito, alright? So this is one amino acid, this is another amino acid. So yung binding niya or linkage niya is from the carboxyl group of one amino acid and the amino group of one amino acid. So pag nag-join sila, ma-release yung water. So pag tiningnan mo yung composition, no, magiging this one is the peptide bond. So ma-release yung water from the interaction of the two amino acids. So pag sinabi nating two amino acids, so that's a dipeptide. So pag apat, tripeptide, or apat, tetrapeptide or tripeptide, pag madami, in general, that is termed as a polypeptide chain. So remember that the chain of amino acids is a polypeptide chain. Pag sobrang dami pa, may ano kasi yan, may later naman in our discussion with proteins, yung mga structure naman nila, kung alpha helix, kung beta pleated sheets, etc. So malalaman din natin that the polypeptide chains can actually pwede siyang maneuver or pwede siyang mag-fold to become different types of protein, kung fibrillar, etc. Okay, so a large polypeptide is composed of your protein. Okay, ito na yung ginagamit natin ng katawan natin for structural support, etc. All right. So amino acids differ from one another by the chemical composition of their R group, or ito yung side chains natin na tinatawag. So yung R group is unique to a specific amino acid because it will dictate kung anong itsura niya. All right. So there are different R groups. So if, for example, these are your amino acids. So madami yan, no? 20 amino acids, no? And half of it is your essential. Later we're going to discuss. And these are the R functional groups. So yung structure nila, okay? All right. So depende sa structure nila, no? Kung meron silang ring, etc. Kung meron silang very simple. So remember yung glycine, yung pinakasimple lang sa lahat, no? All right. And then pwedeng mag-bind or pwedeng mag-combine yung mga amino acids natin through the peptide linkage or peptide bond from carboxyl to amino group linkage. All right, so as I have mentioned, there are 20 amino acids and they are classified as essential and non-essential. So pag sinabi nating essential, ganun din sa fatty acid. So it needs to be yung amino acids na essential need to be found in the diet. So kailangan from outside source, exogenous source, while your non-essential can be produced de novo by the body. All right? And here are the functions of your amino acids. So again, in general, parang protein din siya, no? Synthesis of body proteins, okay? The building, ito na yung larger structure or larger group of polypeptides from your amino acid combination, no, including the plasma, intracellular, and structural protein. So almost all of the body, very important yung amino acids natin. So amino acids are also used for the synthesis of non-protein nitrogen-containing compounds such as purines, pyrimidines, porphyrins, creatine, histamine, tyrosine, epinephrine, and the coenzyme NAD, nicotinamide adenine. Okay, so ibig sabihin yung amino acids natin can actually go into different metabolic pathways, no? They can produce glucose, can produce ketone bodies, etc. They can pwede silang sumuot-suot kung kahit saan, all right? So in addition, it can actually provide for energy, okay? Energy requirement in the body around 12 to 20%. Okay, so ito yung essential amino acids natin. Of course, ito yung kilalang ano natin, acronym, no? PVT team hall. So phenylalanine, valine, threonine, tryptophan, isoleucine, methionine, histidine, arginine, leucine, and lysine. Arginine is considered as semi-essential because during growth, no, during childhood, kailangan talaga siya. It needs to be supplied in the diet. Pero pag nag-adult na siya, eventually napoproduce na din yung arginine in our body. So the non-essential includes the rest. All right? So tandaan niyo yan, PVT team hall. Pero kailangan yung alamin kung ano ba tong I na to, kung ano ba tong T na to. All right? Kasi ang iba para magka-same sila ng ano ba. Basta it's your way of ano na lang. It's your way of memorizing, all right? Basta that's PBT team hall, essential amino acids derived from the diet. Okay, it must be supplied in the diet. Right? So for the amino acid metabolism, remember that liver, just like in any other substances, no, liver yung main function. So very important yung liver aside sa fatty acid metabolism and other substances, no, it's the protein actually that is the yung parang main player in your liver catabolism of your amino acid. So generally, yung first step natin, pag kumain tayo ng, syempre from protein yun, di ba? And then eventually, mag-breakdown niya by your enzymes, okay? Which include the separation of amino group from the carbon skeleton, yung alpha carbon, yung C, okay? And usually it is a reaction which includes your transaminases. So I'm sure alam niyo na yung mga transaminases natin, di ba? Yung ALT, okay, AST, all right? And remember, the carbon skeletons resulting from deaminated amino acids are used to form either glucose or fat. So amino acids can either be glucogenic or glycogenic or ketogenic. Okay, and they are converted to metabolic intermediate that can be oxidized by the citric acid cycle. Your citric acid cycle natin is your Krebs cycle. So later I'm going to show you the paano or ano mga amino acids ang pumapasok sa Krebs cycle natin. Alright? Please mute yung naka-unmute. Naka-unmute. Oo, tama. Please mute yung naka-unmute. Okay, so the latter alternative, amino acid catabolism, is more likely to occur when glucose levels are low. So again, yung amino acids natin can be a source of energy in case na wala talagang supply yung katawan ng glucose. So for example, in cases when the person is fasting or starving. Alright, so pwede yon. Okay, so ito yung tinatawag nating transamination. Okay, remember the transamination from the word itself, trans. Okay, transfer of amine group. All right, so this is a reversible reaction which transfers the nitrogen-containing amine group to another molecule. So usually yung exchange niyan is between an amino acid and an alpha keto acid. For example, alanine, mag-transfer siya into pyruvate. Okay, and aspartate, mag-transfer into oxaloacetate, and glutamate into alpha ketoglutarate. So transfer lang, wala na tanggal yung amino group mo or yung NH2 mo. All right? So nag-transfer lang NH2 from one amino acid to alpha keto acid or vice versa because this is a reversible reaction. So remember the transamination reactions are catalyzed by specific transaminases. Okay? Transaminases also known as aminotransferases. All right? Di ba yung SGOT mo, ALT, SGPT, okay? They are just the same, right? And remember that transamination reaction actually requires your pyridoxal phosphate as coenzyme. So remember, kailangan ng vitamin B6 mo before it can occur. Alright, kaya dapat present yung lahat ng mga kailangan, mga star player mo. Alright. Okay, how about deamination? Okay, our deamination naman from the word itself, de and amine. Okay, so tatanggalin natin yung amine. So hindi siya nag-transfer, so tatanggalin talaga siya. So it is the removal of amine group from a molecule by deaminases. So very easy, no? From the word itself na lang, malalaman mo na. And remember that deamination occurs primarily in the liver, although there are some activity in the kidney. And amino acids are broken by this process if there is an excess protein intake. So usually pag sobrang protein intake natin, usually sa mga nagji-gym siguro probably protein shake or mga ganun, may mga amino acid concentrate na iniinom, okay? If there's an excess, okay, eventually it will be broken down by deamination, and then the excess amino group, okay, can be excreted in the urine. All right? So ito yung oxidative deamination which will provide for ammonia, okay, for urea synthesis that is eventually excreted in the urine. All right? And alpha keto acids for variety of reactions including energy generation. So aside from the ammonia which is excreted, so there are also alpha keto acids that are formed along the way which can be still used for energy generation. So that's how the body handles itself kung sakali may problema na may fasting, in a fasting state, for example. All right, so this is transamination as I mentioned earlier. This is the transfer of amine group, di ba? From amino acid to an alpha keto acid or vice versa. So remember the reverse na arrow, no? Pwede yan. So this is facilitated by your aminotransferase and your coenzyme pyridoxal phosphate. While your deamination, itong H3N, okay, this amine group na-release siya or natanggal siya from the glutamate, magiging alpha keto acid siya, alpha ketoglutarate, which will release your ammonium ions. This ammonium ion will be sent to the urea cycle, or can be itong alpha ketoglutarate can actually papasok siya sa energy generation, sa Krebs cycle or sa citric acid cycle natin. All right? Okay, so amino acids, the amino group is removed from amino acids by either deamination or transamination. Okay, very clear tayo dyan, ha? And the resultant keto acid can enter, as I have mentioned earlier, lang din, okay? It can enter into common metabolic pathway with carbohydrates and fats. So ito yung for energy generation natin. And ketogenic amino acids generate ketone bodies. Siyempre, ketogenic, okay? Magfo-form ka ng ketone bodies. Pag glucogenic, magfo-form ka ng glucose. Alright? And then, as I have mentioned earlier, the ammonium ion or ammonia that's produced during deamination of the amino acids converted to urea via the urea cycle in the liver. Later, we are going to discuss some of the disorders associated with your urea cycle. But for the sake of our discussion, we're not going to discuss talaga yung Krebs cycle kasi mandugo yan, tsaka urea cycle. So, naalala ko dati during our sa biochem namin, ika-count mo kung ilan yung ATP na napoproduce, etc. From glycolysis, etc. Ganon, from pyruvate to ganon. Alright, so hindi na tayo dyan. So, dito lang tayo. Alright. So, this is the flow chart of your tawag dito, your protein metabolism or amino acid metabolism. So pag sinabi na transamination, again, transfer of amino acid of amino group, okay? From amino acid to your alpha keto acid, and your deamination naman, letter B, okay? Release or tatanggalin yung amino group, magiging ammonium ions which can be recycled or can be excreted into the urea as urea through the urea cycle. All right, so that is your alpha keto acids, as I mentioned, by transamination and also deamination, itong alpha ketoglutarate, okay, and your glutamate can actually participate in your energy generation, such as your tricarboxylic acid cycle or your Krebs cycle and your glucogenesis and ketogenesis. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, although yung based from the structure of the amino acids, no, pwede siyang non-polar, polar, aromatic, etc. But for the sake of our discussion, we're going to discuss more on the classification of amino acids based on whether they can be sourced for glucose, pag sinabing glucogenic, or can form ketone bodies or ketogenic or both. Okay, so as I mentioned, glucogenic or glycogenic amino acid can be converted into glucose by the process known as gluconeogenesis from other sources. All right, while your glycolysis natin, di ba, from glucose to pyruvate for energy. All right, yung ketogenic amino acid naman can be converted into ketone bodies through ketogenesis. All right, so gluconeogenesis, very common yan, from non-carbohydrate sources. So this can be lactic acid, this can be protein. All right, amino acids whose catabolism yields pyruvate or one of the intermediates of the citric acid cycle are termed as glucogenic or glycogenic. So ganito, so lahat ng amino acids na nagkukos ng production or nag-yield ng pyruvate or any of the intermediates sa loob ng citric acid cycle are termed as glucogenic and glycogenic acid. So lahat ng andun lang siya sa citric acid cycle, kag mag-produce siya ng pyruvate, glycogenic or glucogenic yan. While yung ketogenic naman, yun lang yung mga amino acids na kung saan nag-yield ng acetoacetate or one of its precursors, such as acetyl-CoA or acetoacetyl-CoA. Alright, so ito lang yung mga, tandaan nyo lang yung mga acetate na yan. Okay, pag nakita kang acetate, so ketogenic yan mga yan. So pag nakita mo yung citric acid cycle, kasi actually yung mga metabolic pathways natin are interconnected, no, from the urea cycle, Krebs cycle, tapos itong acetoacetate, okay, acetoacetic acid or acetoacetyl-CoA, they are interrelated. So once nakita mo yan na nandoon siya mag-yield siya ng acetoacetate, pag may acetoacetate, that's ketogenic. So I'll show you this one. Okay, so this is the Krebs cycle. All right, so alam nyo na yan. Okay, citrate, alpha ketoglutarate, cysteine-CoA, fumarate, oxaloacetate. So sabi natin, lahat na nag-yield ng pyruvate and lahat ng mga amino acids na nag-yield ng mga intermediates natin within the Krebs cycle, okay, such as this one, alpha ketoglutarate, succinyl, fumarate, oxaloacetate, are termed as your glycogenic or glucogenic. So itong mga naka-blue na ito, di ba? Nandun sila sa loob ng Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle. Okay, so ito sila ang mga glucogenic, while yung sabi ko, yung mga may acetate, aceto, these are your ketogenic amino acids. But also remember that there are also amino acids that can do both. Okay, they can be glycogenic, and at the same time they can be ketogenic, such as your tryptophan. All right. Okay. Ano pa? Lysine. All right. Later I'm going to show you a table. All right. So ito yon. Okay. So glucogenic, ketogenic, or both. So for both, yan sila: tyrosine, isoleucine, phenylalanine, tryptophan. Okay, while you're ketogenic, dalawa lang, lysine and lysine. Guys, medyo particular ako dito ha. So medyo aralin niyo yan. Alright? So essential amino acids, sabi natin PVT Team Hall. Alright? So bahala na kayo dyan. Alright? So tandaan nyo lang, when you memorize actually, tandaan nyo lang yung mga konti lang, para konti lang memorize nyo. Ketogenic, okay, dalawa lang sila, lysine and lysine. Alright? KLL. Okay, kill. Let's kill the ano ba. It's up to you, all right? And then yung both glucogenic and ketogenic can be isoleucine, phenylalanine, tryptophan, and tyrosine. All right? And also remember, itong phenylalanine, tryptophan, and tyrosine, parang isang pathway lang sila for the production of your dopamine, etc., yung mga norepinephrine, all right, mga serotonin, etc. Okay, so we go now to the individual amino acids. We go first to your essential amino acids. So very very definitive ba yung mga description natin. Basta remember lang ito yung mga ano nila, yung mga important role. All right? So remember that arginine plays an important role in cell division. As I have said earlier, diba, this is considered as a semi-essential amino acid because it is essential, or it is required in the diet in developing child. All right? Pero pag lumaki na siya, okay na siya. So pwede na siya de novo synthesis. Okay? So it participates in healing of wounds, stimulation of protein synthesis, okay, an immune function, and the release of hormones. So remember that ito yung arginine natin is required for the generation of urea. Remember, pag-generate na ng urea is very important for the removal of ammonia, which can be toxic in the brain and also in the liver. All right? And again, it is required for the synthesis of creatinine, which degrades to creatinine. A waste product is cleared both by from the body by the kidney. All right, tandaan nyo yan ha, cell division. This is semi-essential. All right. Okay, next is your histidine. So histidine, tandaan nyo yan ha, the only, one of the basic amino acids due to imidazole side chain. So remember ito, synthesis of purine. So very characteristic itong si histidine. So always remember histidine, histone, di ba? Histone, those are the proteins associated with your DNA. So kahit pakayon pakulbon, kahit nakapikit ka mo, histidine, synthesis of purines, all right? Very high yield yan, all right? So since it is important in the synthesis of proteins that make up the DNA and RNA, so it is important, or it is needed to help grow and repair body tissues. Siyempre sa cell division natin, okay, importante siya. And also it maintains the integrity of the myelin sheaths that protect your nerve cells, and also for the manufacture of red and white blood cells, and also histamine. So from the word itself, yung pag may histamine, okay, histamine stimulates secretion of the dextroenzaglutine and acts as a catalytic site in certain enzymes. So yung some of the enzymatic reactions are actually dependent on the catalytic site, which is composed of your histidine. Okay, so tandaan nyo yun guys ha. So isoleucine, okay, isoleucine is actually a branched chain amino acid. So medyo complex ito siya. So it maintains, heals and repairs muscle tissue, skin, and bones. And remember this one, it is very important in your hemoglobin formation, your heme synthesis. I'm sure na discuss ito sa hematology nyo, no? And it helps to regulate blood glucose levels and maintain energy levels. So remember, energy levels kasi, di ba, ano to? Yung isoleucine, is it glucogenic, ketogenic, or both?
Both, sir. Ano?
Alright, sige. Nakita ko na, napicturean ko na yung sa mind ko, nandun sa gitna, di ba? Yung isoleucine, sila ng mga tryptophan, tyrosine, alright? While your ketogenic, dalawa lang yun, di ba? Which is your LL. Okay, let's scale this lab, alright? Tandaan nyo si LL, ha? Tenenen. Okay, lysine. Leucine is also a group of branched chain amino acids. So isoleucine, leucine. So they are one and the same, or they are almost similar in structure because they are branched chain amino acids along with your valine. So remember sa amino aciduria natin later, no? Or sa MSUD natin. So ito sila, okay? Si Liv, no? Leucine, isoleucine, and valine. So it is the second most common amino acid. Yung pinaka-abundant or pinaka-common is your glycine. Remember, glycine, ito yung pinaka-simple. Okay? Simpleng amino acid. Isang ganun lang. Okay? Leucine in conjunction with valine and isoleucine boosts the healing of muscle, skin, and bones, and aids recovery from surgery and lowers blood glucose levels. And remember that it's important for the optimal growth of infants and for nitrogen balance in adults. All right. Next is your lysine as a net positive charge. Ibig sabihin, it is one of the 3 basic amino acids. So more on alkyl by charge, no? So tandaan nyo itong mga role niya or function niya. It is used, yes, it is used for the production of antibodies, and it lowers triglyceride levels. Okay, so remember that lysine helps in absorption and conservation of calcium. So ibig sabihin, it is important also in your calcium metabolism. Okay, and also for collagen formation. Okay, so important yung collagen natin sa ating mga connective tissues such as your cartilage and your bones. Okay, so lysine, di ba? Sa mga tiki-tiki, di ba, meron mga ganun, fortified with taurine, with lysine. Di ba? So next is methionine. Methionine is an important amino acid that helps initiate translation of messenger RNA. So important ito sa protein translation. Okay? And remember that it has it is the source of sulfur. Okay, that is required for the body for normal metabolism and growth. So remember itong mga synthesis natin of different substances, including your epinephrine and choline, actually is derived from your methionine. Next is your phenylalanine. All right, phenylalanine is classified as a non-polar amino acid because of its hydrophobic. So pag sinabi na non-polar, hindi siya dissolves aqueous solution. Okay, so sa organic solvents lang siya. Okay, organic solvents lang siya na nadi-dissolve or soluble siya only in organic solvents, in non-polar solvents. All right, so hydrophobic siya in nature. Okay, secondary is benzyl side chain. So ito, remember this one, no? It promotes alertness and vitality, elevates mood, decreases pain, aids in memory. Aids in memory and learning. So kailangan tayong kumain ng mga pagkain na mataas yung phenylalanine. Okay, aids in memory and learning, and it's used to treat arthritis and depression. Why? Because nga it promotes or it elevates the mood. So remember, it is used in the production of your serotonin. All right, phenylalanine is used in the brain, used by the brain to produce norepinephrine, which is also a neurotransmitter. And ito, phenylalanine is used in active transport to cross the blood-brain barrier. So itong phenylalanine is directly travels or directly passes through the blood-brain barrier in normal amount or in small amount for its metabolic functions. However, pag sobrang taas yung quantity nito, in cases of, for example, PKU, for example, no, or meron tayong tetrabiopterine deficiency, for example, it will interfere the production of serotonin. Remember, itong serotonin, ito yung mga functions ng serotonin. Okay, indirectly, no? So elevates mood, etc., decreases pain, all right, which is also another neurotransmitter. So if there is a tip in the balance between your phenylalanine and your serotonin, there is changes in your, again, the CNS, no? Okay, sa mood, sa pain, etc., memory and learning. All right, so going back, no, yung phenylalanine is a part of the composition of your aspartame. Ito yung mga sweetener natin, no, mga Splenda, di ba? Okay, present yan. Kaya sa mga patients with PKU or also yung mga dihydrobiopterin, tetrahydrobiopterin deficiency, for example, no? Yan, kailangan tignan yung wala dapat siyang aspartame kasi it can be a source of your phenylalanine. So pag may deficiency ka, syempre kailangan i-restrict yung diet mo na present yung phenylalanine. Kaya dapat iwasan yung aspartame. Alright? Yung mga Coke Zero natin, bawal yun sa mga may PKU or mataas yung phenylalanine in the blood. All right, and also it plays a key role in the biosynthesis of other amino acids. All right, ganun yung amino acids by either by, di ba? As I mentioned earlier, transamination, the amino acid can form a new amino acids by the transfer of your amino group. All right. Next is threonine. Threonine is an alcohol-containing amino acid that is important component formation of your protein, collagen, elastin, and tooth enamel. So, tooth. Okay, yung pala tandaan ko. Threonine, tooth enamel. Okay, so proceed na tayo. Okay, that is important in the production of neurotransmitters and health of the nervous system. Tandaan si threonine, tooth. Okay, so also aside from that, threonine also helps maintain proper protein balance in the body, and it aids in liver function, metabolism, and assimilation of other amino acids. Next is your tryptophan. So remember the tryptophan, yun, ito precursor siya ng serotonin and melatonin. Remember yung phenylalanine natin, yun, kasama yung mga yan, alright? So tryptophan is formed from proteins during digestion by the action of proteolytic enzymes. And tandaan nyo ito naka-underline, serotonin and melatonin. So, these are neurohormone and a powerful antioxidant, yung melatonin mo. Alright? So sa mga hindi nakakatulog, so pwede ito. Alright? Although ako parang hindi na effect, yung pampatulog sa akin is kape actually. Tryptophan is a natural relaxant. Alright? So secondary nga, kasi precursor siya ng serotonin, no? It alleviates insomnia, okay? Secondary to melatonin, by inducing sleep, soothes anxiety, and reduces depression. So partly because of serotonin, alright? It is used in the treatment of migraine headaches, aids in weight control by reducing appetite, and helps control hyperactivity in children. Kasi nga, ayun, it alleviates or it induces or it soothes anxiety. So yung mga active na mga bata dyan, yung mga ADHD, so pwede yan. So pwede silang patulugin agad, no? Pwede silang bigyan ng melatonin, okay, which is actually derived from your amino acid tryptophan. Okay, next is valine. Okay, this is another branch chain amino acid. Okay, kasama ng valine yung branch chain natin. Ano yung mga branch chain amino acid natin? Can you name?
Lysine and isoleucine, sir.
Correct, very good. Yung leave natin, ha, tandaan nyo yan. Sila yung mga branch amino acid. Okay, so valine is needed for muscle metabolism, coordination, tissue repair, and also for the maintenance of your nitrogen balance. And aside from that, it can be a source of your energy if it is in the muscle tissue. Okay, so other than that, it can be used in treatments for muscle, mental, emotional problems, insomnia, anxiety, and liver and gallbladder disease. Now we go to your non-essential amino acid. First is your alanine. Okay, alanine is one of the simplest of the amino acids and is involved in the energy-producing breakdown of glucose. Pero yung pinaka-simplest natin, what is the simplest amino acid niya? As I have mentioned earlier.
Glycine.
Correct, very good. Glycine. Okay, so alanine itself is a product of the breakdown of DNA and or dipeptides, serine and carnosine, which is converted to pyruvate. So remember yung pyruvate natin, okay, 'di ba? Papasok ulit sa Krebs cycle, 'di ba? Pyruvate, ano 'yan, glycolysis na 'yan, okay? Alanine plays a major role in the transfer of nitrogen from peripheral tissue to the liver. So remember, transfer of nitrogen by way of transamination, no? It helps reducing the buildup of toxic substances that are released in the muscles when the muscle protein is broken down quickly to meet energy needs. Again, as I have mentioned, kasi involved siya in energy-producing breakdown of glucose. Therefore, it needs, if the body needs energy, alanine is your iboto sa balota. Alright? Siya yung energy-producing breakdown of energy producing amino acid, okay, secondary to breakdown of your glucose. Next is your asparagine. So asparagine actually the first amino acid to be isolated kasi galing ito sa asparagus, sa fruit, sa juice ng asparagus ba. Okay? So it converts one amino acid into another via amination. So another protein process to amination, addition of one amino group, right? Okay, asparagine is required by the nervous system and plays an important role in the synthesis of ammonia. Okay, basta remember, it is used for the transport of your nitrogen. Okay? Asparagine, the first amino acid to be isolated galing sa asparagus na juice, na fruit. Fruit. Asparagus na juice, basta ganon. Hindi man yan fruit. Vegetable ba yun, asparagus? All right, next is your aspartic acid. Aspartic acid is alanine actually with one of the beta hydrogen replaced by carboxylic acid group. Okay, so ito yung important role niya. It plays in the metabolism during construction of other amino acids and metabolized in the citric acid cycle. So very important si aspartic acid in your energy generation din. Secondary to your citric acid cycle. All right. So among the amino acids that are synthesized from the aspartic acids are, yun, pwede siyang pumasok nga sa citric acid cycle, or it can be synthesized again to different amino acids, asparagine, arginine, lysine, methionine, threonine, etc. And also several nucleotides. So very important din si aspartic acid, all right? Next is your cysteine. Okay, very si cysteine, very kakaiba si cysteine. Bakit? Kasi meron siyang sulfur, all right? Ano pa ngayon may sulfur? Which amino acid yung may sulfur content?
Methionine.
Correct. Okay, very good. Methionine. So cysteine is classified as a non-essential amino acid, but it may be essential for infants. Okay? Just same as your, pero kasi in the books kasi, sino nga yung semi-essential natin? Just like your cysteine in this case here. Your semi-essential amino acid?
Arginine.
Correct. Arginine. Okay, very good. Okay, na mga tinatanong ko yan, lalabas yan sa exam, sure ball yan. All right, so cysteine is an important structural and functional component of many proteins and enzymes. Okay, and it is used as a constituent of food, the flavoring, pharmaceutical, and personal care industry. So mga beauty products, no, tsaka mga gamot, all right? Next is your glutamic acid. Okay, your glutamic acid is synthesized from a number of amino acids. And when an amino group is added to glutamic acid, it forms glutamine. So ibig sabihin, yung glutamine is derived from your glutamic acid. Kung nagdagdag tayo ng amino acid or amino group to glutamic acid. So ibig sabihin, glutamic acid plus amino group is equal to glutamine. Glutamic acid has been linked to epileptic seizures. Okay? Because it is a neurotransmitter, yung glutamic acid natin, which is important in the metabolism of your sugars, fats, and aids in transporting potassium in the spinal fluid. So more on the CNS yung functions niya, no? So as neurotransmitter, tsaka sa spinal fluid. So remember that glutamic acid is present in a wide variety of food and is responsible into one of the 5 basic tastes of humans' sense of taste, which is your umami. Ito yung betsin natin, all right? Okay, your glutamic acid is used as a food additive and flavor enhancer in the form of sodium salt, monosodium glutamate, or MSG. Alright. Sino ga betsin dere? Alright. Okay naman. Namit man ang betsin, ginakilaw ko gani na. Joke lang. Alright, siling ko na nila kung magkakaroon ang betsin, dasig ka daw mapatay. So far, sa awa ng Diyos. Alright, next is glutamine. So sabi natin glutamine is derived from
Glutamic acid.
yan, okay. Very good. Glutamic acid plus an amino group is glutamine, okay? Glutamine is converted to glucose when more glucose is required for energy and aids in immune function. So, generally, no, pwede pa din siya maging source of your energy in cases na hindi na kaya ng katawan na kailangan ng more glucose, no? All right? So, it assists in maintaining the proper acid-alkaline balance in the body and provides fuel for a healthy digestive tract. Okay, kabatyan? And is the basis of the building blocks for the synthesis of your nucleic acids. All right? Ito, glutamine is also marketed as a supplement used for muscle growth in weightlifting and bodybuilding. So may mga mga dilata, di ba? May glutamine, tapos may increased muscle mass. So actually glutamine yun, no? Used for muscle building or bodybuilding. Okay, so remember the important function of your glutamine is for the transport of your ammonia. Okay, so that it can be excreted from the body, all right, to the less toxic urea. Next is your glycine. So, paulit-ulit, no? Glycine is the simplest amino acid synthesized in the body. So, ito yung pinakasimple lang siya. Wala na sa duro, wala na siyang wala sa aritos, wala sa kulintas, wala na sa ring. Okay, isang lang siya, isang kurit lang sa kilay, okay na siya. Okay. So ito si glycine, ito yung natin, yung si ate girl sa sa canteen, 'di ba? Isang guhit lang sa kilay, o ayos na. Yung iba kasi may mga ring pa, aromatic ring, etc. May mga branch pa, all right? Si glycine is the simplest amino acid. And it is essential for the synthesis of nucleic acids, bile acids, proteins, peptides, purines, ATP, madami. Kasi nga ito yung pinakasimple. So mag-form lang siya ng polypeptides, groups of polypeptides. Pwede na siyang gawin as other protein structure or other proteins, all right? So remember that the liver uses glycine to help in the detoxification of compounds and to help in the synthesis of bile acids. So in your detoxification, so remember yung CYP hormones natin, or CYP enzyme system natin sa environmental, okay? Part of the detoxification, actually, yung mga sulfation, etc., glycation, glucuronidation, etc. All right, so glycine has a sweet taste and is used as a sweetener or taste enhancer. So parang si si glutamic acid, is the fifth taste daw, yung umami. All right. Glycine is an inhibitory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system and is a metal complexing agent that retards muscle degeneration and improves glycogen storage and also promotes healing. So tandaan nyo guys, yung mga neurotransmitters na mga amino acid ha. So very high yield yan. Alright? So itong mga neurotransmitters nating amino acid including your glycine, glutamic acid. Alright? Next is your proline. Okay? Proline is a precursor of hydroxyproline. So remember hydroxyproline, very common ito sa histology natin. Manufacture of your collagen. Okay? Remember sa manufacture of your collagen, kailangan natin ng vitamin C. Alright? So for the connective tissue support, okay, for your tendons, ligaments, and heart muscles. Okay? Pwede siya, no? Also involved in your wound healing, and it plays an important role in molecular recognition and an important component of your medical wound dressing that use collagen to stimulate wound healing. So sometimes, ito yung ginagamit natin to facilitate faster wound healing. See? Proline. Alright? Next is your serine. Serine is needed for the proper metabolism of fats and fatty acids. And again, it plays an important role in the synthetic pathways of your pyrimidines and purines, making it an important amino acid for DNA and RNA function, for the creatine and porphyrins too. All right. So it is highly concentrated in the cell membrane. So cell membrane, no? Cell membrane. Okay, tandaan niyo yan. Highly concentrated in the cell membrane, serine. Okay. Component of myelin sheaths and aids in the production of immunoglobulins and also antibodies for maintenance of your healthy immune system. Okay, next is your tyrosine. So tyrosine is a metabolically synthesized amino acid from phenylalanine. So sinasabi ko kanina, no, magkakasama yan sila, phenylalanine, tyrosine, later in the metabolism of your amino acid. Later in the metabolism of your amino acid, ano yun, kailangan natin, makikita natin yung pathway ng tyrosine, phenylalanine, alright? So tyrosine is a precursor of your adrenal hormones. So yung mga adrenal hormones natin, these are your epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine, and also your thyroid hormones, including your thyroxine. So remember, very important. So from the word itself, thyroxine. Okay. Frine. Madami din may in sa dulo eh, arginine, di ba? Basta yon, alright? Adrenal hormones and your thyroid hormones, thyroxine. And so since it is used in the production of your hormones, so it is important in your metabolism in general. So sa nervous system, remember, your thyroid hormones is very important also for your neural development, okay? Act as mood elevator, suppresses appetite, and helps reduce body fat, making it useful for treatment of chronic fatigue, narcolepsy. Yun, so mga narcolepsy, di ba yung mga natutulog lang bigla? Okay. Anxiety, depression, pwede sa low sex drive, no? Talagang talaga. Low sex drive or allergies. Alright? Next is your, kilala nyo ba yan? Si selenocysteine. Okay? So ito yung mga bagong newly discovered na mga amino acids. Okay, dalawa sila. Okay, selenocysteine was named as an amino acid in 2002. So not relatively new, no? Kasi matagal na pala. And found to be the selenium analog of cysteine. Kasi remember natin, sa cysteine, as I have mentioned, meron siyang sulfur content, same as your methionine. So just like in selenium, parang cysteine siya na merong sulfur. Ito naman, si selenocysteine, meron siyang selenium instead of sulfur. So same sila halos, analog sila, same sila ng structure. So selenocysteine is present in several enzymes such as your formate dehydrogenases, glycis reductases, and some hydrogenases. Alright, so tandaan niyo yung selenocysteine na, si Selena, so meron siyang, si Selena, meron siyang cyst, na gano'n na lang, selenocysteine, meron siyang cis composed of your sulfur. So it replaces your sulfur. Diyos mio. Bahala na kayo mag-memorize dyan. Next is your pyrolysin. This is the 22nd natural occurring genetically encoded amino acid used by some prokaryotic microorganisms, no? In enzymes that are part in their methane producing metabolism. So na-discover nila, present ito during methane producing metabolism, yung pyrolysin. Okay, so this lysine derivative is encoded by the UAG codon. So remember yung mga stop codon natin? Na who can recall the stop codons natin?
UAG,
Okay. UAG, ano pa? Diba yung baby na natutulog? Ano nga yung sabi ko doon?
UGA.
UGA.
Oo. Uga, wag, uga, uwa. Okay? Wag iuga kasi iyak yung bata. Wa is me and my jowa. Alright? So normally, a stop codon which is possibly modified siya. Although stop codon na siya, so mayroon pa din daw specific downstream sequence which eventually incorporate your pyrolysin into the terminating translation. So mag-stop na siya pero nadagdagan pa din siya ng pyrolysin. So ito yung discovery nila na pwede pa din pala kahit sa stop codon na lang, merong parang terminating or terminal downstream na naa-add pa din si pyrolysin sa amino acid chain. Alright? During translation. Okay. So we go now to your amino acidopathies. So amino acidopathy, Diyos ko, parang Chinese amino acidopathy. Okay, amino acidopathies, okay, these are actually disorders that are involved in your amino acid metabolism. So secondary to the the common na kasi yung amino acidopathies sa ngayon, okay, common na siya kasi with the advent of your diagnostic procedures, no, of your diagnostic tests, so nade-detect na din siya yung mga different types of amino acidopathies. All right, so kaya yung DOH natin talaga sila ng mandatory newborn screening, which is your Republic Act 9288. All right, so ito yung mga newborn screening ng DOH natin. Nakikita natin bakit kailangan magpa-NBS test. Ang iyong sanggol, so congenital hypothyroidism, CAH, galactosemia, PKU, later MSUD, okay, maple syrup urine disease, and G6PD. All right, so first, amino acidopathy. As I mentioned, amino acidopathies are a class of inherited errors of metabolism in which there is an enzyme defect that inhibits the body's ability to metabolize certain amino acids. So sabi natin, pag sinabi natin enzyme defect, ano usually yung pattern of genetic inheritance? Is it
Autosomal recessive, sir.
Okay, very good. So tandaan niyo yan, pag halos almost all enzymes, error of inborn errors of metabolism, AR disorders. So ito yung mga amino acidopathy natin which we'll discuss siguro ng mabilisan, no? Phenylketonuria, alkapnuria, subalic citrullinemia, tyrosinemia, some of which are urea acid cycle, homocystinuria, arginine-succinic aciduria. All right. So first we go to your PKU. So okay. So phenylketonuria is an inherited autosomal recessive disorder and occurs in about 1 in 15,000 births, so relatively common siya, no? And the metabolic defect in the classic form of PKU is an absence of the activity of your enzyme phenylalanine hydroxylase. Remember this one, PA, okay? Although yung amino acidopathy is also discussed siguro in some part sa sa urinalysis, all right? Sa clinical microscopy. Okay, pero sige lang, this is just parang sort of review na lang din sa inyo, no? The PA catalyzes the conversion of phenylalanine to tyrosine. So ito yung pathway natin, okay? So from phenylalanine, the normal pathway is that it will be converted into tyrosine via your phenylalanine hydroxylase. Now once it is blocked, so mag-accumulate yung phenylalanine natin. Okay, pag na-accumulate yung phenylalanine natin, it will make its way to some other pathway. So parang sa road lang yan, no? Kung ang main highway is na block, so may mga iskinita tayo papasukan. Okay? So yung mga iskinita yan, maliliit lang yan, kukunti lang yan din yung daan diyan, hindi tayo masyado makapass, no? Pag nagpass tayo sa mga iskinita, may mga, for example, may mga masamang loob, for example. So yung mga pyruvic acid metabolites natin, so kakaiba na siya, abnormal na siya yung labas niya. So these are the ones that can also accumulate aside from the phenylalanine. Okay, so later we're going to discuss ano yung mga phenylalanine na metabolites secondary to your blockage in your PA. It's me and my jowa. All right. Okay, phenylketonuria. So it is termed, or it can be elevated as high as 12,000 or 1,200 micromole per liter. So yung upper limit natin is up to this one lang, 120 lang, or 2 milligrams per DL. So pag more than this level, so that can be diagnostic already of your phenylketonuria. And also remember, ito yung sinasabi kong metabolites of your phenylalanine. We have your phenylpyruvic acid, phenylpyruvate, also known as phenylketone, and phenylactic acid. So these are the ones, or these are the metabolites that are actually the causative agent of your brain problems or brain damage and cause distinct musty odor of the urine. So remember this one, yung mga phenylpyruvic acid, phenylpyruvate, phenylactic acid. Ito yung musty odor of the urine. Very characteristic yan. Very high yield exam ito, not just in our quiz but also in the board exam. And remember that for inherited defect in PKU, there is actually mental retardation and microcephaly. So maliit yung head kasi important, o maliit yung brain kasi importante yung phenylalanine in the brain growth or brain development. All right? So aside from that, yung PKU kasi is the deficient yung enzyme natin na PA. Meron tayong hyperphenylalanemia. So ito yung may problema tayo sa enzymes that will produce your tetrahydrobiopterine. Okay? Kailangan din siya, important din siya. So in cases ng mga inherited disorders, pwede itong phenylalanine hydroxylase, which requires your BH4 as a cofactor, can also cause your hyperphenylalanemia. All right? So ito yung natin ng phenylalanine, kung bakit siya, as I mentioned earlier, 'di ba, yung phenylalanine can cross the blood-brain barrier via an active transport. Okay, itong protein na ito, okay? So readily it can transport sa brain. So ibig sabihin during brain development, for example, pag madami ng phenylalanine dito sa brain natin, sa brain ng developing embryo or developing child, so magkakaroon tayo ng effects damaging the brain. So pwede sa myelin, ma-inhibit niya yung tyrosine and tryptophan hydroxylase. So lahat about sa brain, which can cause your cognitive deficits, neurophysiological and psychological dysfunction. All right? So ito yung causative agent natin, or yung main cause natin kung bakit yung phenylalanine can affect the brain, because it can readily be transported by active transport sa blood-brain barrier. So it can readily pass the BBB community. All right? So anong treatment ng phenylketonuria natin? Newborn screening allows early identification and implementation of treatment. So the goal is to maintain the blood level of phenylalanine between 2 to 10 degrees. All right? And syempre kailangan ng high protein foods, that are to be avoided. So lahat ng mga pag-prevent, okay? Diet restriction, especially pag merong phenylalanine. So, 'yon. Alright, ito yung testing natin. So first, we have the GUT3 test. Ito, by the way, yung newborn screening natin. So yung heel ng baby, ibablat or pag ano ng lancet, tapos paduguin, ilagay dito sa mga designated bilog sa filter paper, and then eventually air dried. Tapos isasabit niyan sa mga testing laboratories. Ngayon, itong blood na to is punched out. Okay, so matitira is parang disc na filter paper filled with blood. So yung GUT3 test, it is a semi-quantitative bacterial inhibition assay. This is a screening test, no? Medyo old na itong testing na to, but still ginagamit ito sa ibang laboratories. So anong ginagawa? Anong principle dito behind? The ability of phenylalanine to facilitate bacterial growth in a culture medium with an inhibitor. Alright, yung inhibitor natin is your beta-2 phenylalanine and your bacteria natin is Bacillus subtilis. So ang ginagawa is that yung filter paper na puncher or na punch out na filter paper ilalagay sa agar containing your Bacillus subtilis. Alright, so ito yung principle natin. Pag merong phenylalanine, kasi naturally itong beta-2 phenylalanine will inhibit the growth of your Bacillus subtilis. Okay, that's the normal reaction. Okay, that's the normal process. Pag merong inhibitor, hindi mag-grow si Bacillus subtilis. Ngayon, pag merong phenylalanine, okay, it will nag-exceed into this value, 3 to 4 milligrams per DL. Anong ginagawa niya? It will inhibit, it will counteract with the inhibitor. So pag nalabanan niya yung inhibitor, syempre si Bacillus subtilis wala ng inhibitor, it can grow na into the agar. So ibig sabihin, pag merong growth sa agar, kahit may inhibitor, that means positive tayo sa GUT3 test. There is possible PKU. Nagets yun? Okay, silence means yes. All right. Okay, so GUT3 test is actually replaced by newer techniques such as your tandem MS, mass spectrometry that can detect the range of congenital diseases. And remember, meron tayong false negative sa GUT3 test. So, ibig sabihin, mga infants na at least 1 day old or less than 1 day old or less than 24 hours kasi hindi pa active yung mga enzymes natin. Or sometimes samples not taken before the administration of antibiotics. Siyempre, yung antibiotics natin can also inhibit the growth of your bacteria. Okay, so pwede siyang maging false negative. All right. Also, transfusion of blood products which can actually dilute the blood. Or sometimes yung mga na-transfuse na blood, hindi man natin alam kung nag-take yan ng antibiotics. Okay. Aside sa dilution, pwede din may inhibitory to the bacterial growth. All right. So aside from that, we also have microfluorometric assay. Okay, this is the direct quantitative. So this time, this is quantitative measurement of your phenylalanine in dried blood filter disc that can be adapted to your automation. All right. So ito yung wavelengths natin, 360 and 530. Don't worry, wala tayong ganyan. All right. And also this one. So the reference method of your PKU testing is your HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. All right. So and ngayon meron na tayong tandem mass spectrometry. It's usually ito yung mga specialized laboratory na, no? Yung MSMS. Pag sinabing tandem, meron kasing pag sinabing tandem, para kasi yung riding in tandem sa dalawa. So MSMS, okay, GCMS, ganun. Pero this one, sa mga amino acids natin, MSMS yon, no? It has a greater sensitivity in detecting lower levels of phenylalanine, and it can diagnose PKU as early as the first day of life. So yung mga drawbacks ng GUT3 test natin, no, pwede niyang ma-overcome, right? So aside from that, we also have GCMS, no? Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, and also meron na ding prenatal diagnosis of the carrier status with families with PKU. Okay? Yun, DNA analysis, no? During amniocentesis na, tapos check kung merong risk of having PKU. So sometimes, yun, depende, no? Kung i-end yung, kasi some states in the US, pwede nilang, pwede yung legal yung abortion, alright? Okay, next we go to your tyrosinemia. Oh my God, malapit na tayong ang bilis lang pala. Alright. Don't worry guys. Ang continuation nito, I will just i-continue ko lang tong lecture na to, tapos kasama ito sa basta makinig kayo sa lecture ko, right? Okay, next is tyrosinemia. Maybe this is one of the last na lang siguro na i-lecture natin so that may time pa kayo mag-aral somehow later, no? Tyrosinemia is an inborn metabolic disorder of tyrosine catabolism and is characterized by your tyrosine and tyrosine catabolized in the urine. Same as your PKU, kung saan yung black, so yung proximal doon, yun yung mag-accumulate. So ito yung pathway natin na normally ng tyrosine. So as I mentioned earlier, phenylalanine to tyrosine. Okay, pag meron dyan, yung pa natin magiging mag-block yan. So magtataas yung phenylalanine is catabolized. Yung tyrosine naman, pwede siyang can be converted into DOPA, which are sources of your melanin, all right? And also tyrosine. Ito yung tyrosine dito sa part na to, all right? And remember that tyrosinemia is classified into 3 types depending on the hormones or the enzymes that are blocked dito sa pathway na ito. Okay, we have 3 types, type 1, type 2, and type 3. Tandaan niyo itong mga enzymes na to. Sorry guys, kasi ano talaga ito memorization talaga ito. So you need to kabisaduhin yung mga enzymes na associated or deficient. So for type 1 tyrosinemia, we have the Fa, okay? Hindi pa ha, Fa, okay? Fumarate acetoacetate hydrolase, and the clinical symptoms include the following, no? Failure to thrive. So usually mga pediatric patients, very as early as the first month of life, pwede siya mag-occur, okay? Diarrhea, vomiting, jaundice, and remember this one, cabbage-like odor, tyrosinemia. So lumabas yan sa board exam namin dati, yung cabbage-like odor. Naalala ko, okay? So tandaan niyo yan, cabbage-like odor, tyrosinemia. Distended abdomen, swelling of legs, increased predisposition for bleeding, and risk for renal failure and liver cancer. Next is your type 2, which is your TAT, yung deficient or tyrosine aminotransferase. And then still pa din yung ano natin, yung signs and symptoms natin is more on the CNS, no? So we have mental retardation and symptoms of excessive tearing, secondary to photophobia, abnormal sensitivity to light. Of course, associated din yung eye pain and redness, and also painful skin lesions of the palms and soles of the feet. And the type 3, which is the most rare of the 3, is secondary to your HPPD or 4-hydroxyphenylpyruvate dioxygenase. So tandaan nyo lang, wag nyo nang memorize, tandaan nyo lang itong acronym na to guys, ha? Alright? Kasi mahirap man yung anuhin, i-memorize, i-spell siguro, basi sala-sala pa ko dyan. Okay? Although this is rare, ang iyang mental retardation is also mild compared to your type 2. Aside from that, there are also seizures and loss of coordination and balance in an individual. So ito yung ano natin, So ito yung pathway natin, no? So this is phenylalanine. Okay, so phenylpyruvic acid and metabolites, so blocked. Dito yung pathway natin, all right? So ito yung mabilis lang, no? Ito yung ang tawag dito, ito yung simplified part, all right? So we have the tyrosine. So ito yung number natin corresponding to the enzyme that is inhibited. So tyrosine dito yung 1, okay? Tyrosine type 2, yung TAT. Remember the enzymes. Okay, your HPD, HGD. Okay? Mallyl acetoacetate, your Fa. Remember your Fa, okay? Tandaan itong si Fa, ha? Okay, number 4, si 1. Baliktad siya, yung Fa kasi sa last part, alright? Itong si TAT naman, type 2. Okay, tandaan nyo yan guys, ha? Lalabas yan for sure. And again, for the tyrosinemia, yung testing ng tyrosinemia natin is your MS coupled with confirmatory test for an elevated or abnormal metabolite succinyl acetone. And also for treatment of your tyrosinemia, this is treatment, okay? Treatment is again low protein diet that is deficient of your tyrosine, all right? And also nitisinone, which prevents the formation of mallyl acetoacetic acid. So back to this one. So ito, yung substance na yon, nitisinone, yon, ipe-prevent niya yon, at the same time yung fumarate acetoacetates, which can be converted, itong substrates na to can be converted to succinyl acetone, which are actually the one that is responsible for the damage to your liver and kidney. So itong mallyl acetoacetic acid and fumarate acetoacetic acid. Pag dumami siya, it can be converted or into a alternative pathway which can give rise to your succinyl acetone. So your nitisinone which prevent the formation of such para wala kang succinyl acetone which can be toxic to the liver and kidneys. And example, pag hindi talaga na hindi talaga naagapan, of course you can have full or partial liver transplant. Remember your liver, okay, it can regenerate, all right? Last na to, okay? Sorry, last na to class and then I will just record na lang and then you will just listen, all right? Anyway, mag-stress na lang ako doon sa kung ano yung mga further pointers, all right? So alkaptonuria, so very common itong alkaptonuria. I'm sure narinig niyo na ito sa clinical microscopy. Alkaptonuria is an inborn metabolic disease transmitted as an autosomal recessive gene, the HGD gene, which causes the lack of the enzyme homogentic acid oxidase or homogentisate oxidase, which needed the metabolism of tyrosine and phenylalanine. Ito very characteristic sa patient with your alkaptonuria. Usually makikita ito ng mga nanay sa mga anak nila pag nakita nila na ang diaper niya una is parang wala man kulay. So pagpalit niya, after a while, hindi niya natapon yung diaper niya sa basura. Tapos nakita niya nag brownish black. So that's a classic sign or classic sign of your alkaptonuria. So pag na-oxidize siya, secondary to the oxidation of your homogentic acid, nagiging brownish black yung urine. So aside from that, not just in the urine, it can also, yung homogentic acid natin can also occur in different tissues. Okay? Pag merong pigmentation, brown-black pigmentation in the tissues, that is termed as your ochronosis. And then arthritis like degeneration in the cartilage, dark spots on the sclera, or the white of the eye. So, grabe, imaginein mo, no? Parang nakakatakot man to. And deposition of pigment in the cartilage of the ears, nose, and tendons and extremities. So, technically, maitim ka na, hindi ka na, basta, may mga black spots ka na sa mukha. So ito yung natural history of your alkaptonuria, no? Initially ganyan, okay? So yan, may mga black discoloration na siya sa mga cartilage niya, sa mga tendons, sa sclera, and then eventually ganyan na, oh. 'Di ba? Parang nakakatakot. Siguro naisip ko din siguro yung sa conjuring baka may ochronosis tong si Valak, no? Okay, so again, yung alkaptonuria can actually very classic if yung classic signs ng alkaptonuria, it can be actually done in the laboratory. Simple test lang, umihi ka lang dyan, tapos you wait for some time and then you check if nag-turn black, brown black. That's alkaptonuria urinalysis. And also when ferric chloride is added to the urine, it will turn the urine black in patients with alkaptonuria. Okay, pag may ferric chloride. So it hastens the oxidation of your homogentic acid, no? Treatment of alkaptonuria is again high dose vitamin C. Why do you think high dose vitamin C? Ano ba yung vitamin C? Kasi sabi natin, di ba, due to oxidation, okay, this is an antioxidant, remember, yung vitamin C. Kaya high dose yung vitamin C natin para i-decrease niya. Hindi niya talaga cure for alkaptonuria. It will just decrease the buildup of brown black pigment in the cartilage and may also slow the development of your arthritis. All right? So, we have still MSUD. Actually, guys, wait lang malapit na ito matapos. Mabilis na lang. Can you wait for 10 minutes more? Is it okay?
Go lang, sir. Laban ko dyan.
Okay, sige. Mabilis na lang ito, all right? So, MSUD or maple syrup urine disease. Again, this is an AR disease which results from an absence or greatly reduced activity of the branch chain alpha ketoacid decarboxylase. So yung sabi natin kanina, yung lahat ng mga branch chain, ito yung mag-accumulate your live. Okay? Branch chain amino acids, lysine, isoleucine, and valine. Okay? And remember that the most striking feature of this hereditary disease is the characteristic maple syrup or burnt sugar odor of the urine and breath and skin. Parang ganyan, no? Nasa ano tayo? Nasa cocoa, kotse, pia, kutsinta. Alright? So, burnt sugar, maple syrup, odor of the urine. All right, so the result of this enzyme defect is the accumulation of your branch chain amino acids, not just in your blood, in urine, but also in your CSF. So sa lahat ng mga possible na fluids natin, nandoon siya. All right, and ito yung mga symptoms natin ng patients or infants with this one. Lethargy, vomiting, lack of appetite, and signs of failure to thrive. Also, CNS symptoms may follow, which include the following: rigidities to poor respiratory irregularities. And of course, for treatment natin, just like in any other amino acid metabolism disorders, strict yung diet, which is rich in your lysine, isoleucine, and valine. Okay, again, MSUD, we have the modified GO3 test. And tandaan nyo guys, iba-iba yung inhibitor nila. For Isoleucine, for the GO3. Alright, iba din sa PKU. And later, iba din yung sa isang amino acid metabolism disorder. So tandaan niyo yung mga yan ha. So again, pag may GO3 test, pag positive nga yung GO3 test, ibig sabihin meron kang MSUD or meron kang PKU, anong positive? Is there growth or no growth?
Growth, no?
Very good. There is growth kasi i-inhibit na ng leaf mo or ng phenylalanine mo yung inhibitor. So wala na mag-inhibit, mag-grow na yung bacteria, which is your Bacillus
Subtilis.
correct. All right. So aside from that, meron tayong micropyrometric assay, tandem spectroscopy, spectrometry, MSMS, and also prenatal diagnosis. Okay? So concentration ng decarboxylase enzyme. Next is your isovaleric acidemia. Yung kanina MSUD, ito naman, ito lang yon, preventing the normal metabolism of your leucine. So the enzyme isobaleryl-CoA dehydrogenase. So tandaan nyo lang yan. So from the word itself, isobaleryl. Okay? Although guys, huwag kayong makampante ha. Baka inisipin isobaleryl, ayun lang pala. Tapos hindi nyo pala alam, dehydrogenase pala siya. So pwede ko yung i-trick kayo doon. Just like sa mga na-trick doon sa triglycerides ko. na 3 glycerol tsaka 1 fatty acid. Okay? Okay. You know who you are. Alright? Okay lang, mataas ka naman. And the characteristic feature of your isovaleric acidemia is a distinctive odor of sweaty feet. So tandaan nyo to. Meron tayong musty odor, meron tayong cabbage, meron tayong sweaty feet. So pwede na tayong magluto ng puchero dito. Okay? Sweaty feet, medyo maasim-asim due to the buildup of your isovaleric acid. And again, here are the clinical manifestations of your isovaleric acidemia. And the treatment includes, again, as like the other, okay, protein-restrictive diet and also oral glycine and carnitine, which can actually interact, okay, with isovaleric acid to form it as a non-toxic that is readily excreted by the kidneys. All right. So again, tandem MSMS. And also, it can reveal metabolic acidosis, ketonuria.
Ay, dira ra kani ka mong gawas.
Oo.
Anak sa manong dira ra kani ka mong gawas.
O sa diin man. Sino to? Uy, dali lang gid. Okay, hyperammonemia, thrombocytopenia, and neutropenia. Okay, I think this is the second to the last. So next is your homocystinuria, secondary to the lack of enzyme cystathione beta synthetase. Tandaan niyo pag homocystinuria class, yung problema nito is yung vascular endothelium. So there is increased risk of cardiovascular disease or cardiovascular disorders. Kasi itong homocysteine natin can actually injure your arterial wall, causing it to pwede mag-plaque rupture or mag-rupture ang atheroma natin, which can eventually cause your cardiovascular heart diseases. So remember, elevated homocysteine levels increase the risk of cardiovascular diseases. And again, treatment is dietary restriction of methionine as well as high doses of your vitamin B6. So ito guys, so meron na naman tayong modified GO3 test, pero iba na naman yung inhibitor natin. So remember the inhibitors guys for your MSUD, your homocystinuria, and your PKU. So very, very high yield yang lalabas. Although the confirmatory test is HPLC, still GO3 test is used pa din. Alright? Other than that, MSMS and LC, liquid chromatography, MSMS for urine total homocysteine can also be used. Okay, next is citrullinemia. Citrullinemia belongs to a case of your dalawa na lang yun. Second to the last na lang ito. Okay, it belongs to the class of genetic diseases called the urea cycle disorder. So this is the urea cycle. Again, yung urea cycle natin will yield will accept the ammonia and eventually form your urea, which can be excreted in the kidneys. So itong metabolic sequence that takes place in the liver, ito yung urea cycle natin, okay? And again, yung citrullinemia natin, yung treatment natin dyan is high caloric protein restricted diet, arginine supplementation, so that ma-replace niya or siya yung maging substrate instead, and administration of your sodium benzoate and sodium phenyl acetate. So there are two types of citrullinemia. So we have the type 1 and type 2. And remember the enzyme, arginosuccinic acid synthetase, and yung type 2 citrullinemia, mutation in the protein citrine. Okay, citrine is important in the transport of molecules within the urea cycle. So pag may ganon, generally sila nito, pag meron tayong citrullinemia, there is accumulation of your ammonia. Okay, syempre, ammonia is toxic to the brain and also to the liver. All right, this is the last, I guess, no? Arginosuccinic aciduria. This is an AR urea cycle disorder, just like your citrullinemia, which is caused by the lack of enzyme arginosuccinic acid lyase. Okay, secondary mutation of the ASL gene. All right, so again, magkukos ng buildup of citrulline. Siyempre, yung distal na portion ng block natin, still ammonia, mag-increase pa din yung ammonia niyan. Okay, it may begin with letter G, unwillingness to eat, and eventually lead to liver and sinus damage when this case is not treated by your high-calorie, protein-restrictive diet, arginine supplementation, administration of sodium benzoate and sodium phenyl acetate, just like your citrullinemia, all right? And remember that yung mga urea cycle disorders cannot be differentiated from one or the other. So yun yung problema natin. So in general, urea cycle disorders yung classifications. So ito yung urea cycle disorder natin. Ito yung citrine natin, which is your type 2 citrullinemia. Okay, remember that one, guys. This transport protein, all right? So yan, no? And then eventually urea. So hindi na natin pansinin yung iba niyan. So ito yung gusto lang pakita, no? Yung citrine. Which is an important transport protein of your molecules within the urea cycle. Ito pala, last na, sorry. Cystinuria, very common, no? Or very familiar na sa inyo to. Cystinuria is an inherited AR defect that is caused by not an enzyme deficiency, but rather the universe, alright? But rather amino acid transport system. So ibig sabihin, inadequate yung reabsorption ng cysteine mo during the filtering process. So that's why nakaka-produce ka ng excessive na concentration ng amino acid sa urine. All right? So ibig sabihin that cysteine will precipitate in the urine that forms recurring stones in the kidneys, ureters, or bladders. Tandaan yung recurring stones kasi throughout your lifetime, kahit natanggal mo yun, naihi mo yung bato or nagpatanggal ka pa ng bato ulit by lithotripsy, still magkakaroon ka ng recurring stones, all right? So it can only be yung sensitivity can be limited. So ito yung cysteine crystals natin, very common, yung piatos natin, and this is the cysteine stones na grossly natatanggal, no? All right? So para siyang Himalayan salt, yung pink salt, 'di ba? Pwede siya pang samgyupsal. All right? So the treatment is again, i-prevent lang natin na mag-build up secondary to our increased fluid intake, and remember the minimum amount is 4 liters a day. So inom na madaming tubig. And also penicillamine treatment which forms a stable complex with your cysteine para hindi siya mag-form, hindi siya maging nidus of your stone formation. And pag hindi na talaga, pag masyadong malaki na, we can have percutaneous lithotripsy. So isa shockwave yan para madurog yung mga bato, magiging smaller pieces which can be eventually excreted in the urine. All right? So again, guys, those are your amino acid metabolism disorders. Ito pa pala, okay? Cystinuria testing is your cyanide nitroprusside. So tandaan nyo yan, CY cyanide nitroprusside. Tandaan nyo yan, ha? Cy. Okay? And yung color natin is red, purple color. All right? However, it can be ma-rule out pa din si homocysteine dapat. All right? And also, we can use ion exchange chromatography, okay, which can be quantitative analysis of your amino acids in the urine or plasma. Pwedeng urine sample or the plasma can can actually detect kung merong cysteine in the blood or in the urine by ion exchange chromatography. I guess this is the last slide, guys. Ayan, thank you for listening. My God, lagpas na tayo, pasensya na. Anyway, lahat ng na-mention ko dito, yun yung lalabas sa exam. Sa exam natin, actually hindi pa ako nakagawa ng for your exam, questions for your midterm exams, but lahat ng gin-mention ko, amugin na ang magwa-dra. Okay? So thank you and good luck sa quiz natin later. Okay? Sana ma-perfect nyo din ulit yung iba. Alright? Thank you guys and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Doc.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc.